it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a reasonable ask. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very soon.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today, we're counting down our top 20 times the podcaster Joe Rogan talked about aliens and their advanced craft.
What I believe crashed at Roswell was, I believe it was German from Argentina.
Number 20, modern investigation, old crash site.
You know, I don't believe that they would just start telling you that there's off-world crafts. I don't think so.
Right.
And all these years?
Yeah.
Now you guys are just going to start, it's these brave whistleblowers. Are you sure? Are you sure?
While interviewing retired Navy SEAL Jack Carr, the UFO-obsessed podcast superstar inevitably gets around to aliens. They talk about Dr. Gary Nolan and Dr. D.W. Pasulka and their investigations of possible crash sites where odd memory metal could allegedly be found in the ground.
The airport control tower radar operator verified the same sightings. They were over the restricted areas of Washington, including the White House and the Capitol.
Dude.
They also discussed the claims of Colonel Philip J. Corso in his 1997 book, The Day After Roswell. Here, Corso claims technologies like Kevlar, integrated circuit chips, and fiber optics were the results of studying exotic material recovered from the famous crash site.
There's a lot of things that come almost right after Roswell. One of them is a transistor, and the other one is
microchips,
optical,
maybe. Like
what is that stuff
59.
called? Fiber optics.
Okay.
Fiber optics seem to emerge after that.
Number 19, Americans for safe aerospace.
The pilots do talk about how it's going 120 knots against the wind. And in my recollection, it was going at a relatively slow speed for a fighter aircraft, around 100 knots or so at those speeds, from looking at the radar data itself.
UFOs in Hollywood are often depicted as evil and dangerous, invading worlds and abducting people. But many believe most are just sort of there, in the sky. But that's what makes them dangerous. They're simply a crashing hazard. Pilots might be reluctant to properly report these sightings and near collisions with UFOs, as a long-instilled stigma might deem the witnesses no longer fit for flight.
You can imagine that would be their number one priority, right? So I engage with these folks. I ask them, what's the sense here? People are kind of starting to panic a little bit, and this message is getting out there more and more broadly. And they assured me that's not the case, that there is not a loose nuke or other type of weapon of mass destruction that these objects, whatever they are pursuing right now.
Ryan Graves, a retired FA-18 pilot and UFO witness, brings awareness to this ongoing issue. Rogan and his guest talk about the New Jersey drone situation in 2024, a potential lost nuke, and how Graves' Americans for Safe Aerospace is advocating for transparency, scientific research, and improved reporting mechanisms to ensure safety in the skies.
The way the system is currently set up, there's an executive order that allows for the creation of classified information. You have the National Security Act that was created in Congress and signed by the president. And these are the two laws that essentially allow for the creation of that type of information.
Number 18, the Roswell of Brazil.
They did try to say that the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities, but I've seen the guy, Modine or something like that. But you talk to the witnesses.
But why would the military shut the town down because of...
When it comes to UFO crash sites, people typically think of Roswell, New Mexico. But according to filmmaker James Fox, Brazil is home to a crash site of equal or perhaps an even greater magnitude. The documentary producer leaves no dead air for Rogan's typical long-form show, talking about crashed spaceships, a whole town of witnesses, and the capture of a putrid-smelling alien that supposedly killed someone.
She's frozen in her tracks, locked eyes with this creature, and it's communicating with her. Please help me. It wants help. It's weak and it's feeble and it's scared, and it's crouched down. Liliani realizes that Katya is back there. She gets, 100 feet down the path. She leaves her sister, stay here, I'm going back to get Katya. She runs back. And I asked Katya, and I asked all the girls, during that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, but during that moment of contact, what did you feel? Like, put me there. That's where the title comes from, Moment of Contact.
For almost 3 hours, they talked about witness testimony and the raw emotion that they conveyed. Either nearly a whole town of people are lying, or all of this really happened.
Marco Cherise jumps out of the car and grabs the thing with his bare hands. Yeah. And he puts it in the back seat, and they drive it to a clinic, and the doctor is like, what the hell is that? Get it out of here. I don't know what, leave. So they went to regional hospital, and then ultimately it went to Humanitas Hospital. And so we have testimony from Military X that when he drove it from Humanitas Hospital, it's in the movie, but he drove it from Humanitas Hospital to as a military base where it spent the night in the truck for one night, and then it went from there to Espesex Campinas.
Number 17, the Y-Files.
The small circles are the ones that are most interesting, because how hard is that to do?
Right. And they're uniform. And it's like, what is that?
If you're looking for an entertaining introduction to the UFO phenomenon, the fast-growing YouTube series, The Y-Files, is a great place to start. AJ Gentile and his sassy aquatic co-host make for a wildly fun time, whether exploring UFO lore or government conspiracies. AJ is well-versed in all things weird and tries his best to leave nothing out, even if it ruins the great story he just told you. He did just this on his JRE appearance, where he and Joe talk about their favorite Y-File stories and the current state of UFOs.
If you look at the ancient texts, it may have been in the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
But they allude to this liquid metal. And then you fast forward to like the Nazis building the Bell, the Degrasse. That was a Mercury engine. And then we fast forward a little further, Mark McCandlish and the ARV vehicle, the flux liner. That's spinning Mercury engine. So spinning Mercury keeps popping up.
Between stories of alien crop circles, how weird the moon is, and how much you can trust UFO personalities, the almost 3-hour episode was packed with UFO content.
So he goes in, it's a dark room, the guy's working there. The guy's like, Carl, look at this. It's pictures of the dark side of the moon. He sees domes, towers, roads, all kinds of stuff. And he can't believe it. And Carl goes home and he told his wife, I can't wait to see this on the news. This is crazy what we found on this is a civilization on the moon. And it just goes away.
Number 16, UFO Propulsion Systems.
In physics, there is a speed limit that we have to acknowledge when we talk about trying to go somewhere really quickly, right? And so I like to call it the 11th commandment of physics, thou shalt not exceed the speed of light.
Have you ever wondered how humans would make a UFO? Propulsion expert Harold Sonny White and Rogan play around with the idea of propulsion systems. This leads to the possibility that the famed Tic Tac that Commander Fraver saw in 2004 might not have even been a real object to begin with.
There's multiple people that saw it, multiple platforms that saw it. And so to start with, right, I thought maybe there was a small chance that was just like we have stealth technology, right, where if you want to hide a plane, what if we had the ability to project something, right, through some mechanism where we could make people go where we wanted them to go?
They theorize it may have been some sort of super advanced hologram that allows us to ionize the air, creating some sort of holographic pixel. The propulsion expert suggests that it might be possible to create a fake UFO with this technology, meaning maybe there is no propulsion system at all. Maybe the mirage is to stop us from seeing what's creating it.
And I look at it and I just realize out of the edge of the glowy orb, the wings of a seagull, right? So it's the white belly of a seagull reflecting the light from the nearby city.
Number 15, The Insider.
It was called Kona Blue. And we built up a stack of documents that would go to the ceiling here about what needed to be done, what we were going to do, how it should be done, who should be involved.
So at this point, you're convinced that this is a real phenomenon.
One of the most influential figures in both the UFO and remote viewing worlds, Hal Puthoff is naturally a great guest for Rogan. They discuss the scientists' time in now-defunct government programs like Project Stargate, a CIA remote viewing program, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, and the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
These craft have interfered with military exercises, as we all know from, say, the Nimitz and the Gimbal and the Go Fast videos that made it out into the public in 2017. So it's really out there now at this point.
Those last two are called official U.S. government programs studying UFOs. The two also talk about UAP disclosure, Hal's role in the upcoming documentary Age of Disclosure by Dan Farah, and even whether ufonauts are from a different dimension, from this planet, or from a different dimension/frequency. Number 14, UFOs and religion.
And it was at the Vatican where we encountered, where a lot of things happened for Tyler that I saw made him understand that this was something that had been going on historically for a very long time period.
UFO nut Joe Rogan sits down with writer and professor of religious studies Diana Walsh-Pasulka to talk about all things UFOs. This includes their possible connections to religion, how the government manages public perception of UFOs, and an alleged crash site the professor went to and the material they found there.
Metal detectors that were configured for specific types of metals that he had these built.
Is there a scientific term for these particular types of metals?
They're called metamaterials.
And of course, it wouldn't be a Joe Rogan episode without talking about psychedelics. Both Rogan and Pasulka theorize that hallucinogens could possibly be a gateway to another world. They even suggest that perhaps some of the spiritual sightings throughout religious history could actually be sightings of living beings from another realm, or aliens, or both.
So the magnetism of what's, this kind of light that's happening, you could see that even in the Shroud of Turin, which is, by the way, an anomalous artifact that scientists have looked at, even atheist scientists have looked at it, and it appears to be some type of imprint from radiation onto a cloth. So I think we're talking about forms of light as well.
Number 13, make UFOs great again.
There's a lot of interest in the people coming from space,
Yes.
And I know you're interested in that.
Oh, very
too.
interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they tell you?
In possibly one of the most influential interviews of the 2024 presidential campaign, Donald J. Trump sits down for a long-form talk on the Joe Rogan Experience. It doesn't take long for Rogan to ask the presidential candidate questions of a more conspiratorial nature, rather than a political one. Joe asks the candidate about the JFK documents and if he would declassify them, and of course follows it up with UFO questions. Trump had some interesting things to say about the people from space, as he called them.
I get that question as much as almost any question. Do you think that we have aliens coming, flying around or whatever?
What do you think?
There's no reason not to. There's no reason not to think that Mars and all these planets don't have life,
The president stated he'd been told lots about the subject by credible individuals, but still has a hard time believing it.
They said, sir, there's something there.
There's something there.
They've said it, yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few of
They're
them.
not conspiracy guys.
Number 12, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program.
The Department of Defense is supposed to focus on military. That's it. You don't bring in U.S. persons' information and ingest them into a Department of Defense database, especially a Department of Defense intelligence database. That's a super no-no. That's called U.S. persons' information, and it's pretty much verboten.
Reported to be the lead of the now-defunct Pentagon UFO investigation AATIP and debated to be the kickstarter of the modern disclosure movement, Luis Elizondo talks with Rogan about his time in the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The former Pentagon official claims that in the program, they were exposed to multiple crystal-clear 4K videos of UAP, providing one example of an unidentified submerged object larger than an oil derrick.
There is a video that shows one of these objects underwater that goes by. The speed was calculated between 450 and 550 knots underwater, and it was bigger than the offshore derrick that it was passing, because you could see in the video the offshore derrick, and you could see this thing zip right by it.
The ex-counterintelligence agent also discusses the differences between UFOs and UAP and why the terminology was changed, and even what scientists at AATIP theorized about how UFOs could even be physically possible.
In this thing I wrote, I talk about up to the part I can talk about, and they approved for me to talk about up to that point. When it comes to what the government may or may not have in its possession, all I can simply say is that there is very compelling evidence to suggest that the U.S. government is in absolute possession of exotic material that is not made by humans.
Number 11, the UFO Whistleblower.
Interestingly enough, there's like a whole history of human intelligence prior to World War II and old money, the Vatican, the Italian mob, kind of the old country boys did a lot of informal intelligence collection for the U.S. And there's probably some books you can read on it, but it's really interesting. You know, human intelligence collection wasn't really formalized until the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which became the CIA in 1947.
David Grusch was dubbed the UFO Whistleblower when giving his first public interview on News Nation. The former intelligence officer appears on the Joe Rogan Experience shortly after testifying under oath in front of the United States Congress. He spoke about an illegal UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, paired with a disinformation campaign that's been hiding its existence for about 90 plus years.
Anything sensitive that I want to say as it relates to like U.S. government activity, whether it be intelligence stuff, military stuff, etc., I have to submit it through what they call DOPSR, DoD Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review. That is something anybody who's been an intel officer, anybody with like a clearance, has to submit that kind of stuff.
Here, the whistleblower discusses an early crash retrieval with alleged Vatican ties, reverse engineering programs, biological remains of possible alien origin, and their possible interdimensional origins. Luis Elizondo coming forward opened the media's eyes to UAP. David Grusch coming forward opened up the eyes of the United States Congress.
Certainly, this whole program in a nutshell, if I were to like summarize the 90 plus years of history, it is a reverse engineering program to garner some kind of insight. And of course, not a lot of the things that we've learned from it are like directly, ripped off the technology we found, but it has inspired other innovations that made its way into other U.S. classified programs over the year for national defense reasons.
Number 10, former CIA agent Mike Baker on UFOs. It's always riveting hearing from someone with state secrets in their pocket. If that's up your alley, Mike Baker is a reason to tune into the podcast.
Because whether you're talking about hypersonic aircraft or missiles or whatever it is, there's some stuff that needs to be kept off the radar screen because there is a tremendous competition going on right now particularly for things like control of space.
As a covert field operations officer, Baker worked in counterterrorism and counter-narcotics before leaving the CIA for the private sector over 20 years ago. So naturally, Rogan demanded answers about UFOs.
Do you think there are any credible stories, whether it's from Commander David Fravor, who saw that Tic Tac vehicle off the coast of San Diego, or whatever video?
Yeah. If I had to point to one, I would say Fravor.
In a rambling reply, Baker mentioned that some might be experimental craft, while others are harder to explain.
I think it's a high possibility that that there's, yes, I do think that, but at the same time, then I also question sort of the way that's great. If some alien life force with amazing technology that we can't even fathom right now comes to visit us, then what the hell are they doing?
Either he doesn't actually know if there are aliens out there, or, as many fans claimed, he's just using CIA mind tricks on us. Number 9, Neil deGrasse Tyson on Stephen Hawking's warning. When astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson and Joe talk about aliens, the discussions are always fascinating. In one such meeting, they discussed Stephen Hawking's warning that any alien visitors might have ill intentions.
He is worried about the possibility of aliens enslaving us based on the reality that we've done that to ourselves.
Tyson analyzed this fear in terms of Earth's own history of colonialism, but also expressed his hope that extraterrestrials might not be like us.
So it has been argued sociologically that the very act of wanting to colonize is self-limiting against successful colonization of the galaxy. Because to colonize the galaxy, it has to be done in an organized way. All right, you take this sector, I take this sector, but if I want territory and I want it now, and my kids want it now, I want that territory.
It could be, Tyson hypothesized, that an oppressive, aggressive civilization would not be able to colonize the galaxy, as their methods would invite hostility and violence. It helps that Neil can speak quite dramatically, making whatever topic he talks about more entertaining to listen to.
So it may be that the very kind of civilization that could peacefully colonize a galaxy is not the kind of civilization that would colonize the galaxy at all.
Oof, that's heavy.
Very heavy.
Number 8. Physicist Brian Cox talks about alien biology. This professor of particle physics is the kind of guy you wish were your science teacher in high school.
It is not weak to not know. It's actually natural not to know.
Brian Cox is somewhat of a rare breed, as he can articulate complex ideas and condense them into easily digestible chunks. He breaks down how life in space could work, from actual creatures down to bacteria and organisms on asteroids.
Is this something you think about?
Yeah, I think there must be. Even in the solar system, I would not be surprised if we find microbes on Mars or on some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn where there's liquid water.
Like Europa.
Yeah.
He's incredibly patient as Joe launches some admittedly ridiculous questions at him.
We found a frog on the moon. I mean, the world would stop, right?
I'd be very surprised if we found a frog on the moon.
But I mean, if we found anything anywhere.
We hope that Joe brings him back so we can dissect his brain some more soon. Number 7, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbel on Area 51.
If Bob really did work with all those people and they really were briefed the same way he was, if we could get more of those people to talk, that would be utterly fascinating.
Area 51 has long had a special place in the American imagination. The U.S. Air Force Base is involved in the development of experimental aircraft, but many people believe that it's also hiding aliens and UFOs deep underground. Joe Rogan sat down with UFO enthusiast Jeremy Corbel and journalist George Knapp to discuss the conspiracy theories.
Now, this guy actually is someone that you've had reference to on your show. Remember Annie Jacobson, her book about Area 51?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same guy, but the story that he told me was different than what he told her. He said that they eventually told me that they had a live alien out there.
Knapp was the journalist who first reported Bob Lazar's claim to have worked on alien tech at Area 51. Corbel and Knapp are unable to verify any of their claims, but it's fascinating to watch them tell their stories. They also complain about people who just make things up.
And the more fanciful and ridiculous, the better, unfortunately. People pay more to hear that and consume it.
Number 6. Physicist Avi Loeb talks about interstellar objects. Theoretical physicist Avi Loeb is a respected researcher who previously chaired Harvard's astronomy department.
So I'm a scientist, and I basically follow the evidence, just like Sherlock Holmes, trying to find solutions. It's a detective story. You have some anomalies, some things that don't quite match what you expected, and you're trying to find an explanation.
So when in December 2017 he suggested that the interstellar object Oumuamua might have an artificial extraterrestrial origin, people listened. While most astronomers believe it's a natural object, Loeb thinks it might be a light sail constructed by an alien civilization. Discussing this idea with Rogan, his passion and enthusiasm is absolutely infectious.
So just think about it. Think about a piece of paper, razor-thin piece of paper, tumbling in the wind, and changing the area that we can see, the projected area of that piece of paper, by a factor of 10.
It's also amazing that Joe remains quiet for most of when his guest is talking, which means one of two things. Either he completely believes him or has no idea what he's saying.
But Oumuamua could not have been made by us because it was passing near us just for a few months, very quickly, faster than any rocket that we can launch. That's why we couldn't really chase it when it was receding away from us. And it came from outside the solar system. So, I just do 1 + 1 = 2. I say, okay, it looks very peculiar. Maybe it belongs to another civilization.
That itself should be a sign that the interview is worth a listen. Number 5, James Fox and Jacques Vallée on a UFO sighting in Zimbabwe.
There's no way that a mass landing with the sheer volume of eyewitness testimony at a school in broad daylight could happen and the whole world not know about it.
There are a lot of stories out there about UFOs, and you have to wade your way through to find the good stuff. That's where director James Fox comes in. During his appearance on the podcast alongside UFOologist Jacques Vallée, he talked about a 1994 UFO sighting at a school in Zimbabwe, a story that features in his documentary, The Phenomenon.
You've got all these children saying what they saw on camera after it happened, and then you see them 20 years later, and then we go to Africa and we meet with the headmistress, or she was a teacher at the time. We meet with other witnesses. We go to the landing site. We talk to people at the school. That case is absolutely, and it was witnessed by lots of other people in and around the area for several days before it chose a school to land.
Dozens of children reported seeing the UFO and aliens with big eyes. The children even drew what they saw. What's so intriguing about this story is how everyone on set makes sense of the event. It does make you wonder.
Why do these things land at schools? It seems like, and I'm just totally speculating here, but it seems like if I were going to do that, it seems like a pretty benign environment.
Number 4, Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbel discuss alien tech and human history. If you want to go down a government UFO rabbit hole, Bob Lazar is the man to look into. He claims that he was hired to work at Area 51 to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology.
And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where it caught my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist.
He's a controversial figure because his supposed universities and workplaces have said they've never heard of him. Despite this, he's amassed a lot of support from conspiracy theorists with his claims about antimatter, force fields, anti-gravity waves, and alien involvement in history.
All that stuff that's in science fiction becomes reality if you have a machine that can make gravity. And what we worked on in the desert was a machine that makes gravity.
There isn't a dull moment in this podcast, and it's a must-listen for anyone interested in life from outer space.
It was exciting. I mean, now I knew we were on the absolute beyond the cutting edge of science, and I was so absolutely excited to be there every single time I was.
Number 3, David Fravor and Jeremy Corbel on military alien encounters. Ever since the Pentagon released footage confirming military encounters with UFOs, the internet exploded. So imagine having a Navy pilot come on the show and confirm this isn't an uncommon occurrence.
If you're using a propulsion that's non-reactive, where you're just manipulating the medium that you're in, air, whatever, you can go into the water. So when you hear all the reports of, hey, we've seen these things since World War II that would come out of the water and fly. If you have a technology like this, as long as the object is sealed where you're not going to get water inside of it, there's nothing that says you can't do that.
Commander David Fravor dives deep into a wide variety of strange happenings, including underwater UFO sightings, the Tic Tac UFO encounter, aliens and paintings, and even misinformation within the communities exploring these strange phenomena.
So that's what you're starting to see is people that, very credible. They're not crazy. They're not making stuff up, but they're coming out and going, hey, I've had these experiences. And I've got a lot of that from over the last 2 years where people just find my email and send me stuff saying, hey, this happened to me or I saw this.
Joe hits David with question after question, making for one of the most stimulating and clipped episodes on the show.
I look up and go, well, if we're the only ones around everything I'm looking at, it's a pretty sad place. It's a pretty lonely universe.
Number 2, Travis Walton on his alien abduction. Travis Walton's story of being abducted in 1975 while working as a lumberjack created a media sensation, even leading to the 1993 movie Fire in the Sky.
Where were you? I was lying on my back on a raised table. There was a light above me. It was not real bright. It was not so bright that I couldn't see the outline of the fixture, but
He claims that he awoke to short, bald creatures watching him before human accomplices led him away, put a mask over his face, and knocked him out. Whether you believe him or not, it's fascinating to watch him tell his story, which is certainly one of the most vivid and fantastic out there.
What did they look like?
I guess it's a pretty typical description nowadays. Very large eyes, hairless, two eyes, nose, mouth. I didn't see them speak or no change in the expressions. And to me, that in the face of all the screaming and the fear that I was projecting, their lack of reaction probably just added to my panic.
He really breaks the tale down, giving a play-by-play account of the events. There isn't another interview like it on the Joe Rogan Experience, and it's something you just have to listen to yourself.
When I tell this story and try to relate to people, I'm trying to communicate what I experienced and how utterly, utterly traumatic that was and how it was so devastating. I was, on the verge of catatonic for weeks after it happened, but I don't want to relate this story in order to inspire fear.
What if the truth about our reality has been hidden in plain sight? I'm Rob, and this is Unveiled, a podcast that dives headfirst into the biggest mysteries of our time. Each episode, I sit down with thought leaders, insiders, experiencers, and visionaries to explore the unknown.
The reality is that there's people out there that have reported terrifying experiences with these things. And the term abduction comes to mind.
From the UAP phenomenon and government cover-ups to alien abductions, remote viewing, and the metaphysics of consciousness. This is not your average UFO podcast. Unveiled is about peeling back the layers of reality, of belief, of ourselves. So if you're ready to challenge the mainstream narrative, expand your mind, and discover what lies beyond the veil, check out Unveiled and join me on this journey into the unknown. Number 1. Christopher Melon on UFOs.
When did you get interested in the subject of UFOs?
This interview wasn't just exciting, it was important. As the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the late 90s and early 2000s, Christopher Melon once had access to a lot of information.
Do you feel like this is a politically risky thing to discuss, especially to discuss like in serious terms? Like, do you believe in these things? Like, what are they? What do we know? Was that an issue?
Absolutely. I concealed my interest in the topic for years and very carefully, and confided to a few trustworthy friends, had a few heart-to-heart talks with a couple individuals.
In James Fox's aforementioned documentary, The Phenomenon, he claimed that he was the source who leaked the 3 infamous Pentagon UFO videos to the New York Times in 2017. He's someone who held a position of power, but is keen to bring more information to the public. If you're at all curious about aliens, this is a podcast episode you can't miss.
I'll tell you another story offline. We can exchange stories offline.
I'm excited. I can't wait for this to be over now.
What UFO conversations from the Joe Rogan Experience are your favorites? Let us know in the comments.
It may be that the very kind of civilization that could peacefully colonize a galaxy is not the kind of civilization that would colonize the galaxy at all.
Oof.